Today in Agronomy on KFIL AM 1060 with Pioneer Field Agronomist Allie Wise and Josh Schaffner. Here's Josh and Allie.
Good morning, Southeast Minnesota. It's September 30th, 2020, and this is episode 42. Allie, last episode of September here. We had a pretty nice growing season. We talked about kind of trending ahead on crop progression most of the season, even though GDUs were kind of, maybe average, but early planting dates are in our favor. And, corn and soybean harvest has started across the area. Maybe thought we'd start just kind of what you're seeing for harvest progress and maybe a little inkling on what you're seeing for performance across the Southeast Minnesota.
Yeah, so I think overall, it's just nice to see the work that we have been able to get done here in the month of September, obviously drastically different than last year. On the soybean side of things, at the current state and time, we're still a touch in that holding pattern, unfortunately, just waiting for some of the sun to come out a little bit more, keep this wind, keeping those beans at a nice harvestable moisture. But as folks have dug in, I know we updated everyone earlier on that the early maturity beans planted early were really producing some nice yields as we moved into the mid-group ones and then even pushing closer to some of those group twos. We have seen that yield hold strong consistently. So in my opinion, if that trend can continue, still pretty happily surprised with yields we're seeing in terms of beans across the area. And then early harvest wise on the corn side of things, we've dug into a lot of our 94-day, 94-92 AM, and then a touch of our 98-80 across the area, some 99-98Q. And so far, like I said, even in some of those areas that we were maybe a little bit more moisture stressed than other areas, I think you definitely see that variability throughout the field, but yields are holding in there pretty strong in my opinion, but obviously a lot more harvest to come. What would be your take as you move to the east?
Yeah, it's a bit of a similar story. And I know I talked about soybeans earlier on. I was just more curious of as we keep climbing maturity based on some dry times in August there, would we see yields continue to climb or plateau? And I think the initial inkling is that things are going to continue to go maybe a little bit stronger as you get into some of the more full season beans. Kind of coming out of this little holding pattern, we're into some moisture and a little bit damp here. I think majority of the beans, all maturity, as they're going to be ready to go here. So I think once we get back in the field on beans, we'll hit all the maturities and we'll have a good report to see kind of what the maturity spread was there. On the corn side of things, really exciting on some of the moistures of the corn. And, last year we fought moisture all fall long, Allie. It was just kind of a struggle. We're probably a good 3 weeks ahead of last year on corn harvest and especially some of the moisture of the crop. But really, some of the strategies and not just reacting to last year, but it seemed like we've had some tough falls, but it's really working out well. We're taking, like you said, the 94-day and 5 and 96-day maturities. We planted them early and now we're out there harvesting early. And in some cases, yesterday, Allie, I was in some 96-day corn on corn that was running 21% or actually 19%, even going to town, which is pretty awesome for this time of year. But again, a strategy as we move forward of performance of some of these early hybrids. You referenced a couple in there, P9492 AM and even P9608 Chrome on the corn on corn side there. Really working out well so far. But, really the strategy works good at planting them early. We can maintain some really strong yields, but really the moisture and being able to, the guys that are in a holding pattern on beans and be able to switch over and jump to some corn, which has been really nice. But some of the things there. But Allie, we've had a few questions from customers. I always like to go through these. Number one, I'm just going to throw the question to you. What's going on with these random one-off green beans in my field, Allie? It's kind of been a question we've seen. It's not a big deal, but we just want to maybe discuss why we're seeing those random one-off green plants out there.
Yeah, and it certainly does catch your eye. And as we get across the area, I think there's some varieties that maybe show the visual symptomology a little. It's easier to pick them out than others, especially dependent on how mature some of those fields are. But as we've been able to actually assess some of these greener plants throughout the field, and we have somewhat come to a conclusion, this is widely distributed. So we've had agronomists, farther to the west of us, across the border into Iowa, everyone is seeing a similar thing. So you can bring on some of these greener plants by a variety of different viral infections. Sometimes even just the environmental factors or stresses you see throughout a season could bring this on. But in the case of this, as we look at some of these greener plants, if you look at the upper portion of those plants, you might see some of the pods that are a little bit stunted or shorter. So we are attributing that to a more textbook case of tobacco ring spot virus. And like you said, it could be a variety of different viruses and very randomized throughout the field. I would say less than 1%. We don't expect this to be yield limiting. And I think, even though it's maybe catching your eye a little bit more in some cases than other, as we get to the point of actually running that through the combine, I do firmly believe it's going to be a moot point, I guess. Am I off on that, Josh?
No, and even is it 1%? Is I think it's probably a quarter of 1% is what it boils down to. But we've had a lot of questions on it. But just some random virus infections. It happens some years more than others, and not going to be a big deal. Allie, I've had a few questions. Always that time of year, fall weed control. Some alfalfa acres coming out. I've had that question. Just kind of should I spray it off? Not spray it off? I always encourage growers, if you know you're going to take a alfalfa field out next year, certainly want to spray that off. I always get the question of what is too late. I might want to take a cutting here quick. In some cases, with nice weather, we can roll that application into early October if we get a nice day. But the more freezing nights we get, that alfalfa gets to dormancy, we can run into some troubles getting that alfalfa to kill as good as we want. But some glyphosate 2,4-D crop oil will take care of that. And when we come out of break, Allie, we'll maybe talk a little bit about fall fertilizer as the crop comes off.